around the end of 2017. We ran a story on sunk cost fallacy in game development. It featured around a dozen developers describing the price they paid for ignoring red flags and continuing to work on bad features, or entire projects that were set for failure simply because they invested so much time, money, or energy into them. A short time after the article went live, we got a suggestion from Maxim Verge. Developer Tom had to do a follow-up piece looking at the issue from the opposite direction. What about good games or game features that got cut when perhaps they should not have been? Like sunk cost fallacy, this is an easy blunder to make. Game development requires juggling so many disparate, yet interdependent elements that it can be hard to keep track of which ones are the lost causes and which ones should be prioritized as important. But as many respondents noted when I put this question to them, it is much harder to actually gauge whether you cut something that you should not have. Most cuts are made well before completion when a game and its systems are still taking shape, and their removal is rarely an independent event without consequence, both good and bad on other parts of a project. To extend the juggling analogy, if you let one ball drop, then it may be easier to keep the others under control, but it may also knock other balls off course on the way down. And as veteran designer No Forster notes, the problem with regretting cutting features is that often the best parts of a game are unexpected to the developers, or at least can have a surprising impact. Conversely, a lot of things that a designer might think will be fantastic turn out to be just adequate. Game design is still as much of an art as a science, and as such success can be inherently difficult to predict. All the same, as you are about to see, there is plenty we can learn from the thought exercise. Even that difficulty to predict the impact of design decisions and feature cuts, for instance, can itself weigh on a dev's mind. There was this one quest we cut from The Witcher. Says CD Projekt Red is lead quest. Designer Mashkevich. Players were supposed to infiltrate the Wild Hunt in order to eliminate one of its generals, Chiron. In the process, players would learn more about Wild Hunt, its motivations, and have a chance to interact more with them. On first glance, it sounded cool and beneficial, and from time to time I'm wondering, was cutting it a good decision? But it generated a lot of design issues. With the quest included, they have had to worry about ways to prevent the player killing everyone there and then, and whether or not to make new animations for moving around in heavy plate armor, and a host of other problems that did not seem to go away after a few iterations on the quest. Its design has one of the more concrete examples of a cut that perhaps should not have happened. He worked as an engineer at Petroglyph Games during development of cancelled MOBA and of Nations, which he remembers went through a few design variations over a long development cycle at publisher Try onwards, behest before initially settling on a massively multiplayer real-time strategy format. Perhaps as the game was finished in this format in late 2012, and that it was the best RTS he'd ever played. I could not wait for them to make it live so that I could play it with the world. He continues, but once we were at the end of our task list, there was a week or two where we were all like, it was supposed to go live on day X. Why is Try holding back? We had moved into a new office in anticipation of switching to a live support role for Ian while working on other games. The day of the move, we found out the game was cancelled. Worse, Petroglyph had to make big staff cuts to deal with the financial fallout of this unexpected change. Meanwhile, Try moved development in-house and turned End of Nations into a MOBA, stripping out nearly all of the RTS systems they'd spent years honing, only to then cancel that version the following year. The suddenness of these events and the lack of forewarning that Tryon was unhappy with the game, took it on his psyche. To this day, just past the 5-year anniversary, I still feel traumatized by it. He says, you always hear about trauma in regards to things like gun violence or sexual abuse, but I think layoffs should count as trauma too, and I was not even one of the ones laid off. It was just like my whole world changed overnight. Question. Producer designer Michael Kelly drew various lessons from the ill-considered decisions to pivot that he witnessed during his years in AAA development at 2K games. Pivoting a video game is like turning an ocean liner, he explains. You cannot pivot on a dime in AAA with large teams and or multiple studios. From these experiences, now I am a believer in scoping early, and often down to the very minimum cut of a game. If I have to, the features, which ultimately ship, should have ample time to get polished rather than making lots of non-essential bells and whistles which stretch the team too thin. He cites the Bureau XCOM Declassified as an example. Its development was led at various points by different teams with different visions, each of which left ghostly impressions on the design, art, and the code as the next team refactored the old work for the new direction. Because they did not have the resources to start anew, we had production workflows for art and the code that could not be removed even though the features they were designed to support were no longer in the game, says Kelly. When you pivot on a game's direction, Kelly explains, you'll not only create inefficient workflows, but also harm momentum, as many features must be redone, and some tools built for the old job are not fit the new job, and you now have less money and time to finish, says Kelly. Or to break even on your investment, you will now have to sell 30% more units than your original target. If you had just shipped the initial design, in that same time you would have a chance to pull in revenue at this point. And as a point of career advice, Kelly adds that it is better to have another shipped game on your resume than a gap of a year or two without a title credit, or better to have 10 years experience with multiple credits rather than 0 or 1, as in the case of the Pro Force, who worked on Duke Nukem Forever for its entire development. In many projects, it does not even matter if the new direction might be better than the old one. Pivots can and sometimes do succeed with final games that have a clear identity and a cohesive design, but more often developers find that the legacy decisions of old come back to haunt them. Kelly concludes, I think lots of developers who spent a few years on a pivot ask themselves, what if we had just cut the things that did not work, doubled down on the core loop, and got it out the door rather than spending another year and lots of money trying to reconfigure this into the new design that is also unproven? There are lots of reasons for cutting features from a game during development. Some of them relate to the lack of quality or suitability of said features for the project, but many of the factors that drive cuts are external. StarCraft Ghost, for instance, was reportedly cancelled in large part because World of Warcraft was all-consuming at Blizzard. For a few years, Medal of Honor Airborne lost more than a year of development time too, and a request to switch from the Quake II engine to Runware 4, only to later switch to Unreal after a few months of struggling to get the incomplete Runware 4.0 engine to do what they needed. Dead Space 3 also had issues caused by requesting changes, with much of the narrative depth and the complexity. It was criticized for lacking cut to fit in more microtransactions and marketing bullet points, while a promising core design developed Tomb Raider 10th Anniversary Remake was cancelled despite an impressive demo build, because publisher Idle C changed its mind and gave the remake to Crystal Dynamics, which had just completed Tomb Raider Legend, and rather creative director Martin Solin describes one occasion where an entire control method was cut from a game he worked on just prior to launch, at the behest of the marketing department. Maybe marketing was right, he says. I do not know, but it felt like gutting the entire game. More rarely, good quality features or entire games can fall foul of pessimistic business practices. Veteran artist and illustrator Mark Ferrari once told me about the cancelled X-Men TV controller game he worked on in the 1990s. They had a tiny budget and production schedule, but between them Ferrari and the rest of the team figured out how to make a good game by using a number of palette manipulation tricks. One not file, for instance, would display a valley filled with trees and fluffy clouds, using one palette, and a gloomy cityscape with bridges and freeways. With a different palette, we sent it off expecting them to call amazed at what an astonishingly awesome product they made for so little money, in so little time. Ferrari recalled, and what we got was a really angry call to the head of our division from the head of that project at this big company, saying we did not ask for this, and you have really screwed us over. The client company was angry, because if they were to release this actually good 8-bit TV controller game, they would run the rest of the line of games already available in stores unmarketable. It was too good to release. Hep remembers a less severe example of the feature being cut from a game for business and marketing reasons. I was a technical artist on Tiger Woods' PGA Tour 2008 and 2009. He recalls, for the 2009 installment, one of his colleagues decided to try bringing the dynamic hair system from the Battlefield franchise over to replace some of the awful helmet-like polygons that served as hair in their golf game. He got 2 or 3 hairstyles working with this kind of hair, continues Hep, and it looked much better, but those higher up did not want to use it unless with hair options could be replaced with this new system. Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2009 Hair in Action. The dev team did not have the resources to make this transition within 1 year-long cycle, so they cut the hair that was already made. The most recent entry in the series, Rory McIlroy, PGA Tour 15, still retains the old helmet hair tag, likely for the same reason. Fanbit co-founder and CEO Chris Miller, his entire career is spotted with great multiplayer modes that should have been. After he left Blizzard in 2002, Miller went from game to game almost without exception, seeing fantastic multiplayer modes take shape, only to be killed or undermined at the expense of inferior single-player experiences. First there was Goblin Commander, an early attempt at real-time strategy on consoles that he worked on at Jaleco. We got online multiplayer working on PC and it was working on Xbox, said Miller. At the time, the platform manufacturers were like, everyone either has to be all the same, or everyone has to have something unique. But if we released multiplayer on X, then PlayStation and GameCube would not let us through certification if we had a feature that was better than their platform. In order to release on all 3 platforms, they had no choice. Cut it. Goblin Commander released on all platforms, with only single-player and 2-player split-screen modes, to the chagrin of reviewers and Miller believes to the game's ultimate success. Next he moved on to Lionhead, where he first helped wrap up Fable development, then landed on the 20-strong team building Gamasutra hybrid black and white. It was an ambitious game, and Miller arrived just in time to fall in love with the city building and the multiplayer modes. He describes the farmer as an insanely cool, chill-out Farmville-esque experience that predated Farmville, and the latter as the most fun mode in the game for its monster versus jump and board fighting get menace before the realities of contractual obligations, budget restrictions, and scant time remaining forced some tough decisions. Facing cancellation if they missed their deadline, they left out an open-ended, free-form city building mode, and cut the multiplayer, which, while more fun and unique, could not be left as the only game mode. Lesson learned. Miller later looked at PSN and decided that, since anyone who buys a game on Steam must have network connectivity or otherwise they could not have downloaded the game, he could now go multiplayer first. That led to Fat Princess, a critical deadline and count hit subtract player action RVS, which somewhat ironically ended up with a single-player mode shoehorned in at the last minute at Sony's behest. Miller was to face his cancelled multiplayer curse one more time. However, with a PS4 sequel that was prototyped as multiplayer, forced only to swap to a co-op campaign with a planned multiplayer mode add-on that was finished and ready to go because Sony wanted a different direction. It tanked on release as fans and critics alike struggled to make sense of the new direction. Miller holds no ill will toward Sony, who he calls a great partner, but that decision to de-emphasize multiplayer in favor of the campaign mode took its toll. They cancelled our future contract discussions, says Miller, and we had to shrink the company down. For Miller, who is now once again trying multiplayer first development with squids from space, these experiences show that it's critical to focus on what's most engaging for your audience before you even start to tinker with other elements and game modes. For him and the companies he is worked for, that's online multiplayer. If they can get the core product right, then that gives them the best possible chance to get their core audience, and then FunBits hope to leverage this core product in other directions only after they have a strong foundation that is fun and has some traction in the gaming community. While it can be hard to predict in the moment which features will go on to make or break a game, or in hindsight which features might have elevated the design to a higher level, it is important to have the courage to kill things that you are not confident in as a team, even if it means disappointing certain individuals or a portion of the game, its audience. Bruce Shelley has one such example of a big company meeting during Age of Empires II development. It was about an elaborate formation system. It was like 51 keep it and 49 forget it, and we had to make a call. He recalls, the decision was that was not a strong enough majority. We had to be like 80% keep it, not 50% keep it, or 51, with only half the team still excited about the feature. It had to go. It is also important to remember that no cut is harmless or free from overhead. Cutting something means that you have to do a number of changes in other places, said Tomaszkiewicz. So yes, you will gain some time in production that you did need to finish it, but you will have to allocate time for adjusting the remaining content to that change. And the Solin points out that cutting a feature during development, for whatever reason, that perhaps could have been something special need not be the end of it. It is actually quite nice to go back and review stuff we cut every now and then and imagine what it could be been. He says, sometimes we find things to salvage too.